So today I'm going to be changing the motor / transmission oil on my Nighthawk, and I'm going to be changing the hypoid oil or shaft drive oil because this bike does not have a chain, which is somewhat unusual. This one has an actual drive shaft. So I see the intervals in my manual are every 25,000. In this right here, basically what you need to do is drive your bike for about 15 to 20 minutes to let it warm up, then let it sit for 10 minutes and put it on the center stand, then drain and put about 5 ounces of shaft drive oil. I'm just using the OEM stuff. It's like Honda branded oil, and it's just regular 80W90. Sure, there's better oils than AMSOIL. It's worked for me from what I've seen and researched on it. It's a really good oil, but I think the main thing is just that you keep up with the intervals is super important. And one thing I have noticed is that when changing oils on bikes, that they don't like to be over full. So definitely make sure that you're not overfilling the oil on your bikes, because I have seen it drain back and actually cause some blow by. So something to look out for when you're changing the oil on your bike. I did buy some handlebars. I'm not going to be changing these today. I'm going to do that in a future video. These are Nighthawk S bars or Nighthawk 650 SC bars. I'm going to talk about that more later, but for my position on the bike, the way that I'm sitting on it, I kind of preferred something that wasn't as high up. All right, so I'm going to change the oil on this thing, and I'm going to begin by warming up the bike first so that the oil collects everything it needs to before I drain it out. All right, so here I am at the rear end of the bike, and one thing I like to do, especially when I'm changing gear oil on a manual transmission, is open the top one first to make sure that you can actually fill it back up, and also it helps it to drain. So I'm going to start with that. This is a 17 millimeter, and also I've already heated this bike up for about 20 minutes. Which is what it says to do in the manual, to heat it up for about 15 to 20 minutes and then let it cool for about 10 minutes. So here we are. Also, I did forget to mention that the bike does need to be on the center stand, which it is right now. Now, if you just want to check your oil, this is where you would do it at. The drain plug is going to be a 10 millimeter. And I think it said you have to let it drain for about 10 minutes. All right, so I got a can here to stop it from leaking onto my tire. Definitely something you want to watch out for. Luckily, not too much got on there, and I'll be able to clean it up with some cleaners later, but definitely don't want to get oil on your tire. It does say let this drain for about 10 minutes after it's been heated up. Alright, so I've reinstalled the drain screw. Now I'm going to put in the hypoid oil. Remember, it's just 5 to 6 ounces, and you pretty much just want to fill it up until it's to the bottom of the fill screw. All right, so I'm super excited about this Nighthawk. I'm a big Honda fan. I paid $1,700 for this bike. It does have high miles, so there is some other maintenance I would like to do on it, like a cam chain tensioner. But other than that, so far I've just done basic maintenance, and this thing runs like a top. I really enjoy this bike. I've always wanted a CB, And I guess this isn't like one of the early, you know, late 60s, early 70s, like CB, like classic bikes. But for me, it's close enough. I love the sound of it. It's super fun to ride. I mean, it has 10,000 RPMs. I mean, it's not a super fast bike by any means, but I love revving it out. I love riding this thing. So I am gonna do a full review on the bike. And I would like to point out that I'm not a very experienced rider on the street. I've only been riding on the street for about 6 months now. I have ridden other bikes before off-road, but I am new to riding on the street. So far this bike has been actually, I think, a pretty good beginner bike. I think it has about 65 horsepower at the wheels. I could be correct. Maybe let me know in the comments down below. I thought it said it made about 70 horsepower at the crank, so probably about 60 horsepower, something like that at the wheel. But it's honestly, it's a joy to ride. It's really nimble. I did start on this Sportster right here. I have a lot of good things to say about Sportsters and Harley in general, but this thing has had a few more problems than I was expecting when I bought it. I just can't resist a mechanic special, but I actually got to tear into the transmission on this one to get it going. So for now, I've just been riding this one, and I couldn't be happier. This bike is super nimble. I feel like it stops really well, even though it's not even the dual disc version. So if you are looking for a Nighthawk, definitely consider getting an 84 or newer, because they quickly switch to dual discs on the front, and that's definitely going to add a lot more stopping power. So when I was looking for my first bike, I wish someone would have told me about the Nighthawks, because there's definitely a lot of good bikes for beginners, but for some reason I really wanted an inline 4. And obviously I'm a huge Honda fan, so there's just something about that soundtrack, that exhaust note that I really wanted, and this bike gives it to me without having so much horsepower that I'm just afraid of yeeting myself into oblivion. It's actually pretty tame if you keep the RPMs under 7,000. Even over 4,000, it's plenty usable. You can get around traffic just fine, without having something that is too intimidating for someone that is beginning to ride on the streets. So I looked at a lot of bikes. There's the Yamaha, the FZ, I believe it was called. There is the Suzuki Bandits that I was looking at. But then I just got into other bikes that would have been just too much power for me. So there's things like the Honda Hornet 919 that I still really want to get one of those. But I know that at this point, with my experience level, it will just be way too much power for me. I don't want something that's ready to wheelie at any moment. I'm definitely not ready for that. I just want to learn how to ride in traffic. So if that's you, if you're a beginner, definitely check out the Nighthawk. And I've got another video that I'm going to be dropping this week that's just going to go more into detail on why I think this could be a potentially great beginner bike for someone who's learning to ride on the street. And who doesn't like the headers coming off the front of this thing? I mean, to me, there's just something about an inline 4 that looks so good. I've mentioned it in other videos. It's partly why I like the Civic D Series and B Series so much, is just the 4 pipes coming off the front just looks so cool to me. And it's kind of interesting that these bikes look almost identical with the exhaust setup. I just really had to have that 4-cylinder exhaust note. The soundtrack is so cool. I love the high revs, and I think that had I known about this bike earlier, it would have saved me a lot of time searching for something that had a lower horsepower range, yet still had an inline 4 that sounds and looks awesome. And I also haven't forgot about my Civic. Definitely have a lot that I want to do on that car still. I've actually been working on that Trail 90 behind me. It had some wiring issues, so I've been a little distracted lately, but I will be dropping a review on this bike later this week. So if you guys like this content, please like and subscribe, and maybe watch another one of my Civic vlog videos. All right, thanks. See you guys next time.